Hi, hello, and welcome. I think I am live now. Let me know in the chat if you guys can correctly hear me and see me. So, this stream is basically gonna be about animation curves and a little about sequences. So, we are looking at the GameMaker Studio 2.3.2 beta, the same thing we looked at, the same version that we looked at in the previous stream on Monday. And now we are looking at animation curves. Previously, we had a look at 9 slices, and we are looking at curves because in the beta there's a new feature concerning the animation curve editor, and it has a new curve library feature that's mainly about having some presets for curves that you can use, so you don't really have to make everything from scratch. So that's a new feature. But this stream is mostly gonna be like an introduction to animation curves or an overview as to how they work. I will also be playing around with some animation curve features and sequences as well. Of course, again, if you guys are here and you can hear me, let me know in the chat, because I'm not sure if I'm seeing any activity. We're gonna begin in a minute when more people have come in. Okay, thank you, Benny. I seem to be hitting my mic a lot, so I'll move it back, and this should be good. Hello, Sim. How are you guys? Okay, so let's just start with getting a basic overview of what animation curves are, because I'm sure many of you don't know what curves are because it's such a new feature and its use isn't really clear, and it's one of the most underused features ever since 2.3 came out last year. So let's see. We have an animation curve folder here. I hope the screen is clear. Let's create a new animation curve. And this basically opens up the animation curve editor where we see our curve. And what this is basically this part that you see here. We have a basic line that's going horizontally. So horizontally it goes from 0 to 1. That's the basic concept. And on that 0 to 1 dimension or axis, you can create points and move them vertically. Of course, horizontally as well. That basically moves it back and forth on that horizontal dimension. But what's important here is its vertical value, because when a curve is used, whether in sequences or in the game with GML. Hi Timothy, welcome to the stream. And it is an exciting feature. So basics are that you're going to be using the horizontal dimension to get the value at any horizontal point to get its vertical value basically. Here we have the curve channels on the left. So by default we have one channel, but adding more channels basically creates more curves in the same asset. So let's delete the rest and look at the first one that we have here. And if you open it up, you're gonna see a list of all the points. So each a default curve is gonna have 2 points, one on the left, one on the right. So horizontally you're gonna see its value here. Let me zoom in a little. And for the first point, the horizontal is 0. For the second one, it's 1. And then you can basically set its vertical value. And you're gonna see its vertical value here. And then you can continue and create more points. So basically there are always gonna be 2 points in a channel. And again at any points because we are just starting now, but still, if anyone has any questions, just put them in the chat and I'll try to answer. So let's now see how a curve can be used. Usually I just used to use it in sequences because that's the simplest use on it of it. You can just put a curve in a sequence, assign some sort of a property to it, maybe a position or scale, and you're gonna see its effect immediately. But for this stream, we're actually gonna start by previewing it in GML because that doesn't usually get covered. It's used in GML, so we're gonna look at that. Let me import a sprite that we're gonna use for this example. And in the stream, I just noticed something funny. You can't really see my mic, but it's just here. It's being hidden by the AI feature, whatever it is. This is cool. So we have a coin here. Set the origin to middle center. And let's make an object for coin and assign the sprite. I'm gonna place it in the room. It is a little small, so let me increase its size so it's easier to see. Okay, we have the coin here, and we just wanna see, we wanna make it move up and down because that's how it is in games usually. Coins are basically moving up and down, and we're gonna do it in GML, of course, but we're gonna base it on an animation curve so that up and down animation is gonna be in an animation curve. Yeah, you can do that. There are a lot of small things like this in GameMaker that even I sometimes don't know. So yeah, we're gonna make it move up and down with a curve. Let's create a curve for it. For our use in GML, the horizontal dimension is gonna be the time that passes for the animation. So it's gonna, the time's gonna pass like this, and at each point it's gonna get the vertical value. So let's make it like this for now. So basically it's gonna go like this, and the coin should move up and down. So the horizontal dimension here will be time according to our use, and the vertical dimension, we're gonna make it affect the Y position. So that's what we are seeing here for now. I'm getting a call, sorry about that. So we are gonna use this channel as our Y position. So I'll just rename this channel, the curve channel, to Y. And something interesting here is that you can also click here to change the color of this channel. And by the way, this was also a new feature in the beta 2.3.2 that you can now preview the changes of the color picker at real time. So previously you had to select a new color and then press OK, but now you can actually see its effect as you change the color in the picker. So this is cool. So since this is the Y, let's use green. That's usually the color that's used for this dimension. And now let's start using it in our object. Here we have O coin, it is in the room. Let's create a time variable. So this will basically control where we are on the channel. Start it at 0. And we also need to get the channel for the animation curve. So from the animation curve asset, we are basically going to get a struct for the channel that we want to read, and then we can use functions on that channel to read the vertical value at any horizontal point. So let's get a channel. I'll simply call this variable channel, and for this I think we use the animCurve get channel function, and here we put the ID of the animation curve. So let's use animation curve 1, which is the name of my animation curve, and then the channel name or its index. So here you can either pass in the name of the channel, which in our case is Y, or you can pass in its index. And because this is the only channel in our curve right now, we can just use 0 because that is the first index. So I'm going to use 0 here, and we now have the channel. Now we can use, I think, animCurve channel evaluate. We're not going to use this in the create event. We'll be using this in step, but I'm just showing the function to you right now. And in its first argument, it takes the channel that you are reading and then the X position where you are reading from. So this is a position on that horizontal axis from 0 to 1, where 0 is the first point and 1 is the last. So we are going to use this in the step event. Let's go ahead and add that. Now in our animation curve, our range here is basically from 1 to -1, and the center is at 0, the origin. So it's going in the positive area near 1. Let's just move it here, and then it's going all the way down to -1. Now in the step event, let's add to the time 0.01, and we want to wrap it. So if it reaches 1, we want it to go back to 0. So if the time is greater than or equal to 1, let's reduce it by 1. Now for the Y position, first of all, let's get the vertical value of the current point on the channel. So let's say var value equals animCurve channel evaluate. Then we pass in the channel and the position on that horizontal dimension, which for us will be time. And before applying it to the instance in any way, let's use throw debug message to print it to the output log, and we're gonna see what value we get. We run the game. So this is too small. I'm sure you guys can see the output log, but I am getting an oscillating value here between 1 and -1. So this should be good to be applied to the y-axis for the coin to move up and down. Let's say y equals y start. So I'm basing it on the starting y position of the instance for this example. And let's say value into 32, because this value is going to be between 1 and -1. That's not because of any inherent behaviors of the animation curve, but simply because that's our range in our channel. It's at most going up to 1 and then going down to -1. You can make it go larger. There's no limit on the vertical axis of a curve. So for example, you can zoom out from here or change the range from here, and just you can make these go as high as you want. I'm gonna keep them between the 1 and -1 range, and this should be moving the coin up and down. So great, it is moving up and down. Now basically we can make this faster by just adding a larger value to the time variable. And now it's faster, and the value that we are multiplying with can be made larger for a greater effect. So practically the effect would be the same, but I would suggest using a normalized value in your animation curve. So like I did right now, I kept it between 1 and -1. It just sort of feels better to keep a normalized value here, and then use GML to basically multiply that value. And this way you can also sort of have variables in your code. So here I'm using a normalized value in the animation curve, and here I have 80 for the height. So this could be a variable, and you would know that it would exactly be 80 without having to set it in the curve itself. So because we have 80 here, it is moving a lot on the y-axis. But something that doesn't look good right now is that it's moving really robotically. It's just doing this. There's no real smooth animation like we would expect from this. And animation curves, of course, have a solution for this. They are called animation curves, not animation lines. So we can click on this button here. Let me zoom in. We can click on this button here to open the curve library window. And here in this window here, let's look here. This is the curve library presets section, which we are gonna look at later in the stream. But right now we have three types here: linear, smooth, and Bezier. Let's select smooth, and now you can see the effect here. The curve appears smoother. Go back to linear, and now it's just basic lines. So selecting smooth, now we should get a better effect. So let me run the game, and our coin should be moving a little more smoothly now, and you can see it's looking much better. I should make it a little slower now. Maybe 0.015 should be better. And you can see that's looking quite good. So previously you could do this using a sine wave function, but of course that's not something that many beginners are gonna know. It's sort of an advanced topic. But with animation curves, you can do much more now, and it's more visual, because in the curve here you can see how the coin could go up and down. If you want, you could make it not move as much when it goes up. It's the curve. You can visually change it to do whatever you like. Now this is the smooth option, but there's another option that we have here. It's also gonna result in a smoother curve, and this is the one I actually prefer to use, and it's Bezier. Now you're gonna see that the curve is still smooth. It does look different. Yeah, this is easier than hard coding with a sine wave. I wouldn't really call that hard coding, because that's a whole different term, but coding it in wouldn't really be a visual solution, and this is more of a visual solution. Now for Bezier, what's new here is that on each point we basically have these handles, and these handles can be adjusted to adjust the curve, how it interpolates around that point, going to the previous point and to the next point. And each point has these handles. So for this line, for example, you can adjust it from both ways. Does the smooth basically use lerping? Well, I wouldn't say that, because looping inherently is linear. That's why the name is called loop, because the full form there is linear interpolation. That's why it's called loop. So if you use the loop function to create an interpolation system, that would be linear, like we have here. But the reason why using loop in our examples looks smooth, because we don't use it in the way that sort of animation curves are coded. So the reason why loop results in a smooth movement is just completely different, because we use it in a different way. But inherently, that is supposed to be linear interpolation. So here we have Bezier, and what's good about this is that you can adjust um, how the curve rises and how it drops when it goes to each point, and this gives you much better control for each curve and each point. This should be at 0. Okay, and so with this we can basically customize our movement. Now it seems to stop in the middle, the coin, because of what we have here. It basically goes back up, and for a while here it is stagnant. So you can just adjust the handles for this. So that's the basic coin example to explain the different curve types: linear, smooth, and Bezier. And now we're gonna go with a different example to explain the curve library feature. So let me remove the coin from here for now. And for this, I think I am gonna use let me find something new to use here. Let's use this ship. I'm gonna make an object for this, or ship, assign the sprite, and place this in the room as well. Make it bigger. And we sort of want to do the same thing here. We want to move it using an animation curve, but we are not gonna make it bob up and down. We want it to go from point A to point B. So let's move it on the y-axis. The start position here would be y start. Let's store that in the variable. And the offset y that we're gonna apply to it using the animation curve, let's make that minus 200. There should be enough room to move it that much, and seems like there is. So I'll change that to 400. And I'll just make a new animation curve for that. I'll call this anim ship. Let's get the channel for it here. Anim curve get channel. So the curve here is anim ship, and the index is 0. Let's go in the step event. Yeah, we also need a time variable here. Let's add the time. Again, let's drop it. We'll grade it to 1. Then we set reduce it by 1. Let's get the value from the curve channel. channel evaluate. Again, the X position here is the time, and let's set the Y, which will basically be start Y plus offset Y into the value. So again from the curve, we are expecting a normalized value, and we are going to multiply it with our own value here, which is the Y offset. So in the curve, we want the range to be from 0 to 1, and the last point will be vertically at 1, and the first one will be at 0. So it's simply going from 0 to 1. There's no other animations or any other points here. Let's see how this works. And the result that we are getting here is expected. Now what I want to do here is I want it to stop at the end for maybe half a second or a second, and then it should go back. It shouldn't just end and then immediately go back. So first of all, in the part where we are passing in the time to the evaluate function, I'm gonna make sure that the value that is passed in is not greater than 1. So I'm gonna use the min function to make sure that the minimum value is selected here. This means that if time does become greater than 1, 1 will be selected, and that's the value that will be passed in into the function. And now instead of wrapping the value when it reaches 1, I'm gonna do it when it reaches 1.5, and here I'll set it to 0 basically. And let's see what happens now. And you can see it stops at the end before restarting the whole animation. And the reason why I've set up this basic example is because I want to show the new feature that's in 2.3.2, the beta, because the stable version is at 2.3.1, and so in the beta we are seeing some new features. And concerning animation curves, in the animation curve editor we have a curve library basically, and that has some presets that you can use to apply to your curve to change how it interpolates from one point to the next, or basically how it animates. So let's open the curve. I'm going to set the range to 1 and 0, so we are seeing the whole curve. I'll maybe zoom out a little, and with this channel selected, I'll open the curve library menu, and first I'll make sure that the selected type is Bezier, because you can only use the presets with Bezier, you can't use them with smooth or linear, so they require the channel to be Bezier. And here you have a lot of presets. As you can see here, when you hover your mouse over a certain preset, you are gonna see its preview here. So basically what that curve looks like. So here we have pretty nice curves, and then there's the elastic curve. Do we know when this comes out of beta yet? Not sure. Could be maybe by the end of this month, but can't say. But again, you can try it out. You can download the beta version from your YoYo Games account page, and this is a separate install, so you don't have to worry about overriding your stable install. So if you download the beta and install it, this will stay separate from your stable version. So you can install the beta, try out the new features, and you can still keep working on your main projects in the stable version. So let's click on the expo curve here, and it gets applied to our channel. So this is what our channel looks like now. Previously it was just going from 0 to 1. It was linear, but even with Bezier it was a straight line. We applied a preset here and it got applied to our channel. So if I run the game, we should see its effects, and you can see that without having to think about what kind of curve we want to make, we just open the presets menu, and from there we just applied a nice looking curve preset, and now we have a pretty smooth animation. There are also some subtle presets. So this basically moves the object really fast, but if you select just ease or cubic, it's not gonna be as fast, but it's still gonna be smooth. So you can see it starts out pretty linearly, as you can see here, but by the end it gets slower, so it is looking smoother. Let's look at the back preset, and before reaching the point it basically moves a little further. So you can see before reaching the final destination it's basically going a little further and then coming back. This gives a nice effect. Then we also have elastic, and I really like this preset. Basically gives a springy effect, and this has to be my favorite preset. This is just so useful in many situations, especially for UI. So when you have a button and you click on it and it gives this springy effect, it looks really good. Hello Flash, welcome to the stream. Now in the presets we should also have bounce. Let's see how this works. So this makes it look like it's falling down, like there's gravity and it's bouncing off, and that's why it's called bounce. So you can see without having to code anything or having to code any bouncing systems or any gravity, we have this nice looking effect because of the presets. Now let's use the back preset here, and let me show you the easing options, because right now by default we are using ease out. And what ease out basically means is that the curve starts fast and then it slows down. So this gives a nice effect where your movement is starting out with its regular speed and at the end it's slowing down. This is the effect you're gonna use mostly for your game effects or UI. But we also have ease in, and ease in basically starts slower and at the end it speeds up. So this is a little odd if you want to make a realistic effect, because in reality when things are stopping they usually get slower at the end. But of course this is an effect that you can use. So here I have selected ease in now instead of ease out, and again I'm gonna select back, so you can see it basically inverted, and let's run it and see what happens. So it starts slower and speeds up, and of course then it stops because the curve ends there. But this basically looks like it's attacking, because in the case of attacks things usually start slow and then they speed up. Can we change the type of each point from Bezier to smooth or linear? No, you can't. If you change the type here, it's basically applied to the whole curve. So even if you have separate channels in the curve and you change the type, they are all going to use that type. So if you want to use a different type, you have to make a new animation curve asset. Now let's get back to our basic curve here. So that's basically ease in. So if you use elastic, it's also going to be inverted. So you can see how it starts with that elastic sort of curve, and then it speeds up and abruptly stops. Now after ease in, we also have ease in and out. So this is basically a mix of the two. So where ease out starts slow and then ease out starts fast and then it slows down. Ease in starts slow and then speeds up. And ease in and out is a mix of the two. So as you can see here in the example of a basic cubic curve, it's starting slow and then speeding up, and in the middle it's then again speeding up and then slowing down. So it's a mix of the two. So let's apply the quad curve here, and you can see how it's mixing the both. You can see this part here being an ease out curve and this part here being an ease in curve, and you have both now. Let's run it and see what happens. So this is probably the smoothest effect we are getting, is that it's starting slow and then speeding up in the middle and then it's slowing down. So this is a very nice effect. If you use it with something more sort of not subtle like elastic, you're gonna see the effect both ways. So there's the elastic behavior on both ends. It starts with it and also ends with it. Sorry, I don't know about F mode. But again, that kind of question would be very fitting for the forums. So you can go to the GameMaker community and probably ask there. Let's see bounce. As you can see, it's gonna start with a bounce and then it's also gonna end with a bounce. How does this handle with lots of objects in the room? Well, that mostly depends on how you're doing it, on how you're using it. I'm not sure about the extra overhead that would come with reading an animation curve asset, instead of doing it with actual math. But of course, I'm guessing that actual math would be faster, but this shouldn't be anything to worry about. Of course, unless you have thousand instances on the same screen for some reason, but in most cases this wouldn't be anything to worry about. So this is basically the ease in and out easing option. And then there's also these buttons here. This is sort of hard to understand what this does, so let me create a new channel and move this one up here. I'm gonna add a few points. By the way, also you should know that you can access the curve library menu from here. You can also right click here and that will also open up the curve library. So basically by default, when you open this from here, you have the overwrite mode selected and the other option is between. So when you select the curve, the channel, and you can see that here we have 4 points. So of course we have the default 2 points here, one on the left and one on the right, but we also have 2 points in the middle. if you click on a preset like expo, you're gonna see that our points got overridden, so they were deleted, and then the preset was applied between the 2 points of the channel. So this is basically what the overwrite option does. But if you select the channel and then go ahead and select the between mode, and then you select a preset that will be applied to each separate line here. So it's not gonna delete your points and then apply the preset to the whole curve, but it's gonna keep your points and apply the presets between each pair of points, and that's why this is called between. And then you have override, which basically overrides everything, of course, except for the 2 points, one on the left and one on the right. Now if you open the curve library from here, by default you have override selected, but if you open it from here, by default you will have between selected. So if you just want to apply a preset between a pair of points, you can just right click on that line and just apply your point. So this is pretty useful. Of course, if we run the game with this curve, we're gonna get a pretty chaotic effect. Now let me see what I have next for the example. Okay, so let's make an example with a button, so we can see how an animation curve can be used for user interfaces. I'm assuming this takes in an animated sprite also. I'm not sure what you mean, because animation curves don't have to do anything with sprites, they're just curves. So if you can elaborate on that question, that would be good. Let's make a simple button here. When I import this sprite for it, I'll set the origin to middle center because we want to scale it. So setting it to the middle would be the best here. Let's also enable 9 slice. This is something we looked at in the previous stream. That's up on the channel. If you want to watch it later, you can go ahead and watch that. But this basically lets you resize a rectangular sprite, and you can see its preview here. I'll make an object for this, or button. Apply the sprites, and I'll place this in the room. Let's remove the ship and place a couple buttons here. I believe the sprite will run through its internal frames as usual. Yeah, because we are not doing anything with sprites. We have a basic object that's just moving on the y-axis or on any axis, and it's reading that from an animation curve. So we are not really touching the sprite part of things here. So let's put a couple buttons here. And in here, let's also make a time variable. And if we let's have a variable that tells whether this should animate or not. Let's set this to false by default because we want it to animate when we click on it. So let's add a mouse left pressed event, and here let's set animate to true, and in the step event, if we are animating, then we add to the time. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed my videos. Appreciate that. So if we are animating, we are adding to the time, and if the time has reached its end, if it is at 1, then we should reset it to 0, because we are not expecting any difference between the starting and the end here. The animation here should be loopable. So let's reset it to 0 and set animate to false. Now I am gonna print this to the output log, the time value, to make sure that it works, and I'm gonna remove this, so we only have one instance printing its values to the output log. And it's printing 0. When I click on it, it basically goes from 0 to 1, and then it resets back to 0. It is a little fast, so I'll change 0.05 here to 0.02. And let's make an animation curve. Let's call this anim button scale. And here we're going to have 2 channels, one for the X scale and one for the Y scale. So let's just add the scales here, and we want these to be at a default vertical value of 1. So by default the scale will be 1, so it's not gonna become bigger or smaller. But then we can select any channel here and just move it up or down at any point to basically change the scale. Now we are gonna apply this to the image X scale and Y scale of the button. So let's get the X channel here by running anim curve get channel. The animation curve is anim button scale, and the channel name is X scale. Duplicating this, I'll maximize this here, and now duplicate this. This will be Y channel, and the channel name here is Y scale. Now if it is animating, we should probably apply it even if it's not animating, because we still have the time value. Let's apply scale here. Let's do image X scale equals anim curve channel evaluates X channel time. So here we are not multiplying it with anything, because the X scale is already a normalized value, where 1 is the default scale, and increasing it makes it bigger and decreasing it makes it smaller. So we are just getting the actual value from the animation curve without multiplying it by anything. Now let's duplicate this and set the Y scale from the Y channel, and right now it shouldn't make a difference because we haven't changed anything in the curve. So let me go here and select the X scale channel and basically increase it in the middle. So when I click on it, it basically increases on the x-axis and then goes down. Now this does mean because we have scaled it up in the room ourselves here, this scale will not be respected because it's being overridden here in the step events. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to store the original X scale and Y scale into custom variables, and in the step event I'm gonna multiply the value that we get from the animation curve channels by that original scale. So this should retain that original scale that we set in the room, and you can see that it does. Now we can also do the same for the Y channel. We can basically make it become bigger. So now we have a basic curve channel where the scale goes up and then goes down. I'm also gonna make it faster here. So we have a nice effect, but it could be better because we are not using a smooth curve or a Bezier. So I'm gonna change the type to Bezier here, and on the X scale select this line, and I'll set this to, let's see, elastic, and I'll do the same for the X scale. So this should give us a better effect on both axes. I'll make it go down here. Let's see what we get. So we're definitely getting some effect. It's not the best, but we are getting somewhere. Let me revert back to what we had before. Set to Bezier, and I'll basically do this manually. So you can see that on clicking we have a button that's animating, and this is also made much simpler with animation curves because we didn't have to code anything ourselves concerning the animation. Our button basically has code to set the time value, which is the X dimension on the animation curve, and then we are basically reading the curve, and whatever's in the curve is controlling how the button animates. So here we have a visual solution to basically do whatever we want, whether it's moving an object or scaling it up or down. And of course we could make this look better. When you're using Bezier, don't forget to make use of the handles. They can really help you fine-tune the animations. Oh, you can't even see the curve because I had the game running. Sorry about that. But yeah, we have a better effect now. And this is basically what I did. It seems to have been hidden behind the game. But yeah, we have something better here. And I think that's all for this stream. I am about to end it in half a minute. So if anyone has any questions about anything, of course, related to GameMaker, just put it in the chat and I'll try to answer. But yeah, that's all for the stream basically. And animation curves, as you have seen, are pretty useful because let you bypass any code that you may have to write, but now you don't have to write it because you have this great visual tool. yeah, appreciate it, Benny. All this is fun, and streaming is also been fun. I don't do this a lot, but I'm thinking I should maybe start doing this on a regular basis. If you guys would like that, for me to stream on a regular basis, but we'll see what happens. I also need to work on some new videos. I basically haven't made a video in 2 months, I think. Got busy with other stuff, but do need to do all that as well. So, yeah, if you guys don't have any other questions, okay, thank you, Benny. So, if you guys again have any questions, let me know. But it seems like you don't. Okay, appreciate it, Ike. And I think I'll end it here. So, thank you for coming, and see you guys later.